I filmed this footage in my living room. What I love about virtual production is that what you see is what you get. Whatever the camera sees is pretty much the final look. And virtual production allows you to do that because then you're not worried about what is the background going to be because it's a blue or green screen. No, instead the virtual production actually lets your subject sit in the environment. Now there are some distinct advantages to having your subject live in a space that is reminiscent of actually being there. What I use this for is my first client project with VP. This is the Critical Role Accessories line by UltraPro. If you're into tabletop RPGs like me, you'll know things related to rolling dice, playing with miniatures, exploring and going on adventures. It's a really fun experience. And I felt virtual production was a very valuable way for us to demonstrate these accessories in an environment that fits the vibe. Everything you see in this video was shot in camera, less some color grading and some motion graphics were overlaying. This video was very simple in execution, but challenging in preparation. The first advantage when it comes to using virtual production is lighting. Whatever your subject is living in, wherever they are, in that space of the volume or using a TV, that lighting is going to hit that subject, so it's going to help reinforce the overall look and hopefully trick the viewer into thinking that the character or the subject is actually there. Because we don't have to do any compositing in post, this allows us on set to really art direct the light so that the background and foreground lighting makes the subject really stand out. The second advantage to shooting in a virtual production environment is reflections. I would put a lot of money on the reason why Disney and Lucasfilm put so much emphasis on virtual production for The Mandalorian is because his armor is highly reflective. And the same principle applies to highly reflective products. So for UltraPro's Critical Role accessories, you'll see that there are parts of the accessories that are highly reflective, such as the pages or the covers. And because we're using a backdrop that reinforces this lighting, it makes it a little bit more believable. Now, the biggest thing when it comes to creating a virtual production environment is having some method of translating wherever your camera is, what you're holding in your hand, and sending wherever that position of that camera is in that space into a virtual world. Fortunately, HTC Mars VIVE is a device that allows you to do just that. I'm not sponsored by them. I ended up spending a lot of money on the thing, $5,000. So then I could get this virtual production pipeline to work. Now, all of it lives in a central hub. I'm going to say it's the brain of the HTC Vive, which you connect your camera using the tracker that's on the camera and plug it into the HTC Mars hub, and then that is connected to your router, which connects to your computer. It's actually really simple to use. Now, for my setup, we used a TV. Obviously, I wish I had a much bigger setup with an LED volume and more lights and more crew, but for this project, we didn't have that. But you're still able to do some really cool things as long as you have the right tools for the right job. Now, it is worth mentioning that when you're shooting in a small studio environment, such as on a TV, you don't have as much foreground-background separation like you would see on a big volume owned by Disney and Lucasfilm. So there is a problem of reflections that you might experience if you do embark on the same journey that I did. But once the TV and camera is set up, it's super simple. When you are in the Unreal Engine software, you can go to your virtual production tools, and there's a system called LiveLink, which will allow you to find the Vive tracker, and it will automatically connect to Unreal once everything is turned on, and then you will get your camera position data in Unreal. So let's say you finally set up your lighting, you know what your subject is. Awesome. Now, we need to talk about the set design. A whole separate part of the production process. It involves woodworking, painting, model making, building things I'm not opposed to learning, but that's a whole separate industry. that you might have to learn if you want to participate in virtual production. Now, fortunately for this Critical Role accessories video, the tabletop RPG experience is often best played on this big, hefty, wooden fantasy table that you might see in a tavern. But no, we actually didn't use that. Instead, we used a wood shipping pallet that I treated with wood stain from Home Depot, so it kind of fits the vibe. But my point here is you have to have good foreground assets in the same way that you have to have good background assets. So set design is another huge thing that a lot of people fail to think about when it comes to wherever your subject is living. Now, that's not just exclusive to your foreground objects, your rocks, your trees in the foreground, whatever is around your subject. We also need to talk about the digital assets. Now, it's worth mentioning that the Unreal Marketplace does have a ton of virtual assets that you can use for your virtual backgrounds. For the Critical Role accessories video, we used a pack called this Medieval Interior House, and basically it had everything we needed to create the vibe we were looking for, a warm, cozy, tavern, cabin sort of thing where people are playing tabletop RPGs. Now, let's say hypothetically, you have to make something custom because there was more requirements for your project. So my point behind sharing this fallacy about virtual production is that it really can be just as expensive, if not more expensive, because to have the option to put the subject in any environment you want, you have to have the assets to facilitate that live on shooting day. If you don't, then you could also risk wasting everyone's time. So virtual production is not just this magic tool. There's just some things that we should know when it comes to diving into it without just assuming that it's gonna fix all of the problems when we're shooting. Now, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm a naysayer towards virtual production because I'm saying some of the things that we have to consider when diving into that. But in reality, production is still production. You still have to make an effort to create the art, whether it's on the front or the back, and have all these inputs to create a beautiful image, whether that's a green screen or a virtual background. It doesn't matter. You still need to think about the assets that are in your scene. Does this accentuate the story? Does it make it easier for the talent to operate on set? There's lots of things to consider, and virtual production is just a tool in that overall end product goal of making a beautiful image or making a beautiful story or commercial, depending on what you shoot. For the Critical Role accessories video that we did with Ultra Pro, it was a really valuable way for us to have a handful of shots in the commercial that really emphasized the overall vibe that we were going for with the lighting. We wanted warm, we wanted cozy, we wanted it to feel fantasy, and the video game assets that we used allowed us to achieve that. And any shot where the camera is a little bit more parallel with the table, it helped us have a full shot rather than having to spend a bunch of money and time on set extensions. Now, what do you, the viewer, need to take away from this rant about virtual production? First off, I want you to not be like me and go and blow a bunch of money on tools that you're really excited about. I love the things that I have, and I look forward to integrating them into my pipeline as myself being a small creator and studio. I'm excited to have it, but be cautious of what your end product is, because at the end of the day, when it comes to virtual production, there's so many roles that you can do to participate in this overall workflow. Set design, lighting, cinematography, the Unreal stuff, developing assets, little things that you can do to participate in virtual production, not just buying everything and trying to do everything by yourself. Now, I do look forward to doing things with more people, and when I was doing research for this video, there was one gentleman who I highly respect, a Mr. John Favreau, and he said that
it also has forced us into having a more efficient workflow that draws pre-production, post-production, and production all into one continuous pipeline.
And overall, I agree with that sentiment. At the end of the day, the theme around virtual production is not to use virtual production, it's to reduce the technical barriers and limitations when we're on set so we can just be artists. When you're working with highly technical things like green screen and compositing, there's a lot of guesswork, and virtual production eliminates that. and I was excited to use it on this Critical Role project, and I look forward to making more things related to it for myself and my small business as a small creator and small studio. So I hope you enjoyed this video outlining my first experience using the HTC Mars VIVE tracker and Unreal Engine and a TV in my living room. If you learned something, let me know in the comment section down below, or if you have questions, comments, concerns, comment section is down there for that as well. I will leave you with the final tip, and that is to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and you'll make some. Goodbye, my friends. Bye.